Hello everyone, Danny here today to talk to you about the audiobook Life Reset Hobnobbing It, book 3 of the Life Reset series. Now, there have been a few people doing videos like me on the first 2 books because this is a really good series. And it's kind of interesting. I've seen a few people make a comment that they either A, thought this was going to be a trilogy, or B, hoped it would be a trilogy so they didn't have to wait until, the 4th book comes out, because there was a bit of a wait for this 3rd book to come out here. And it finally hit Audible the 1st of June. I immediately got it. I actually pre-ordered it. So as soon as it arrived, bam, I had it. I could start into it. And it's taken a while to get to the video here because we've had a lot going on. Family visiting and just all kinds of stuff going on anyhow. But not that matters. Before I get into the book, though, I have a favor to ask. If you love audiobooks, books in general, please subscribe to my channel. Come join me on my audiobook journey. Did this book hit the mark? Did this book live up to the standards of the first 2 books, which were really good, really kind of unique lit RPG books? I was at a point where I had been listening to a lot of lit RPG, and I was kind of getting done with it. I'd reached a point where I was like, okay, it's time to move on to something else when I got into this, and it was just different enough to feel fresh and to feel good and to be enjoyable. And then the 3rd book comes out, and it's got that anticipation, it's got that weight, and you're like, oh, is this book going to live up to the hype? Is the author going to let me down, or is the author going to nail it? The author nailed it. This was a great book. I did not think this would be the final book in the series. Up until almost the end of the book, you're listening going, this can't be the final book in this series. And then as the book nears the end, you start to realize, wait a minute, the author may be able to wrap up the entire series with this book. So in book 2, Oren had a whole bunch of players from his enemy guild, his former guild, used to be his guild, now it's his enemy guild. They came and attack his settlement. He manages to save the settlement, but the settlement's really pretty damaged. And he knows that the guild master and the guild enemy is going to be coming at him again, and they're going to be coming at him hard. So he really has no idea, how am I going to defend against another one? And he gets to thinking, and this is what I really like about this book series. So a lot of books, what you have is you have the main character who just happens to, luck upon some sword that makes him invincible, or, through the first couple of books, they slowly but surely turn into the Superman of their game. And then sure, the players can come at him and, wow, I'll just use his special power and I will wipe them out. Oren's a goblin. He's the weakest of the races. He can't build himself into this super powerful monster that can just defeat these. I mean, hey, I'm a level 2 mob boss. Yeah, I'm going to take on a level 100 player. I'm going to die like almost instantly. He has to rely on his brain, and he has to think. And he gets into fights, and he gets into battles where on the outside, watching it, you're going, dude, what are you thinking? Are you stupid? I mean, come on. He does that in this book. He's got a couple of fights couple of situations he goes into that lead to fights later. I mean, there's one in particular where when he goes into it, as a listener, it's kind of like I'm watching a horror movie. No, what are you doing? Don't go investigate the strange noise in the basement. You idiot, stay out. It's dark, the lights are out. There's this strange growling noise from down there. Why would you go investigate that? Just go get a shotgun and hide in the closet or whatever, But that's what he does. He goes into, and you can feel it from the outside. This is not going to end well for Oren. And it doesn't end well for Oren. In fact, it puts him into another situation where you're like, I don't think he's going to get out of this. I don't see how. He's the hero of the book. He has to get out, but I don't see how he manages to get out. And I don't want to give it away. You'll need to listen to the book, but he doesn't actually really get out at that point. And then it leads to a battle that occurs later. And when he picks that fight later, it's another situation of, dude, what are you thinking? You're still not ready to beat this guy, even with the added weaponry that you've added. You're still not ready to beat this guy. And this is what I love about this book. You, or at least me as the listener, aren't smart enough to be able to figure out his plan. And he goes into the battle. And, you know, at first it starts out going his way. And you're like, oh, wow, okay, maybe that will work after all. And then, you know, the initial surprise, because whoever he's fighting, his enemy is caught by surprise. They're like, oh, crap, I didn't expect, you know, this goblin to have the ability to do this. But, you know, this is actually a really weak attack in the overall scheme of things against someone like me. And so you have the initial bam, oh, it's going great. And then it's my turn is what the enemy says. And it's kind of like, you know, a Rocky movie where Rocky, he gets in a whole bunch of really good punches. And then all of a sudden, Victor slams him against the ropes and just starts beating the ever-loving crap out of him. Now, unlike a Rocky movie where then Rocky all of a sudden starts hitting back, Oren doesn't just start swinging back. Oren has a plan in place. And you got to sit and you got to wait for Oren to implement his plan. And when his plan gets implemented, it catches you by surprise. You're like, dude, that was brilliant. That was just genius. In some cases, he takes something that other people view as a weakness for him and shows that, hey, this is actually what allows me to beat you. And in other cases, it's just a surprise. It's something that we as a listener know about, but we don't understand its powers and its abilities as much as he does. He has this ability to receive things. I mean, there's one in this book where he receives this token kind of a thing. And even Vic is like, dude, what do you want that for? That's just idiotic. And then he explains what he can do with it. And you're like, oh, crap, this dude really understands his gaming, because I would not have thought of that with this. I would have gotten it and gone, wow, that's just... I'll shelve it because I have no clue what I'm going to do with it. He actually has a plan in place where he can use this and he can do it. So Oren figures out that to defeat this enemy guild, he needs something really, really powerful. And he goes after golems. And he's going to build this army of golems. He fails to build an army of golems. I'm going to tell you that up front. He fails to build his army of golems. I'm not going to tell you what he does instead, because he does do something instead. On the way, his plan changes. It's like we used to say in the Marine Corps, no plan survives the first 5 minutes of engagement. And that's the way it is here. As he starts to develop his plan, he's changing it, he's improving it, and he comes up with an even better plan. The ending of the book was a really big surprise. There's something, so Oren has a plan in place. And about the middle of the book, you start receiving the occasional hint about what his plan is. He's got a group of players that have joined his little goblin clan, and they're sent off on a special mission. And about the middle of the book, you start to get hints that there's something wonky with their mission. About 3/4 of the way through the book, you start to get hints of what their mission is and what his plan is involving their mission. And then when it comes time, you're thinking, dude, you're nuts to implement this. I mean, you really think you're going to be able to pull it? You're not close to big enough and powerful enough. And he implements his plan, and his plan kind of backfires. So it does not work the way he expects it to work. However, Vic has had this special plan all along that involved Oren. And it reaches a point in the book where Oren has to trust Vic. Vic is telling him, do this, just trust me, do this, and you'll win. And Oren's, that's just stupid. How is that going to win me anything? You want me to kill this? Nothing. This absolutely nothing. And that's going to win me? And you'll have to listen to the book to figure out what it is and how it works. And it throws the whole game out of whack. And I can tell you right now, there are going to be people who are going to love the ending of this book, and there are going to be people who are going to hate the ending of this book. Because the ending of the book takes the game and it just rips it apart and then puts it together completely differently. And I'm not going to tell you how it does that or what it does, but Vic's plan does allow Oren ultimate victory over his enemy. It does allow Oren, and this is one where I'm kind of like, oh, dude, I have mixed feelings, and I'd be curious. So if you made it this far in my video, listen to the book. Throughout the entire book, Oren is dealing with this internal struggle. He's got Tika, who's pregnant and who he feels like he truly loves. And he's going to have this child in the game world. And he understands it's a game, but he's in the game. It's so real to him. It's like Tika's real, and the child's going to be real, and he's going to have this real baby. And he doesn't want to leave that to go into the real world. At the same time, he doesn't want to stay in the game and stay goblin forever. So he's got this really big internal struggle going on of, should he leave the game? Should he stay in the game? And at the end of the book, he's given that opportunity to leave the game. And I'll be honest with you, throughout the entire book, as he's having these struggles, I'm thinking, wow, I'm glad I don't have to face that choice. That would be so, ooh. I mean, if I put myself in the shoes to where I'm not sitting in front of a screen or even on a virtual reality where I'm constantly, leaving the pod and going into the real world, but I have actually lived in this game. This has become my reality. This feels like the real world, to the point of where in previous books, he forgot he was a player. And he has to constantly, throughout this book, throughout the second book, he's constantly battling to maintain his sanity, to remember that he's not actually a goblin, that this is only a game. And if it feels that real, and I'm married with kids, so it wouldn't be that big of a battle for me. But when I was younger and I was single and, would I want to leave the game and leave this world that feels so real and is so much fun, and now I'm going to have a baby in the world. And he has to kind of decide on that, and in a real way, the decision's almost taken out of his hands at the end. He has a little bit of control over it, but not a lot. And I'm not going to tell you what he decides. You'll have to listen to the book. But based on his decision of whether he stays or leaves the game, based on how the game world is torn apart and put back together again, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to hate on the ending of this book. And there are going to be a lot of people that are going to love on the ending of this book. I'm both. There's parts of the ending of this book that I just hate. And then there's parts of the ending of this book that I just love. There are no parts of the ending of this book that I'm neutral on. There's literally none. There's no part that I can think back, oh yeah, that was take it or leave it. No, I love that. God, why'd you do that? God. It's one or the other. Which means it's a really good ending. The book series is a trilogy. However, it is left open. So it's kind of like the Mercedes Lackey's Apex series, to where you've got a trilogy that ends that storyline, but it's left open for there to be more books in that character's life. The ending of the book ends the storyline, but is left open so that there could be more stories about Oren and his life. There could be more stories about the game, Vic, different people, different characters that were brought into the game. It's not necessarily the ending. It'd be like the Dragonlance series. I used to love the Dragonlance series growing up. And if you've read any of the Dragonlance series, it's this huge series of books with multiple authors that write storylines. They're all based in the same universe. And you might have 3 or 4 books that fill out a storyline and end that storyline, but the world doesn't end, and there's other books, and that's kind of how the ending here is left open. Like, there's more to the story, more to come. Don't worry, people, I'm not finished with this world yet. However, I'm completing this storyline so you can at least sit back, and because if the storyline hadn't have completed, And we had to wait, like I'm waiting. I mean, there's several books right now that I'm just, on one hand, I want the author to just finish now, but on the other hand, I don't want the author to let me down, so I want him to take as much time as he or she needs to in order to, you know, get the book to where it needs to be. Yeah, it's one of those kind of books, one of those kind of endings. Parental warning wise, there is a very little bit of swear words. To be quite honest with you, I became so engrossed in the book that I forgot to pay attention to things like that. There's one point where I hear one character say a swear word and it's kind of jarring and takes you out. And I was like, okay, so there is swearing in there because I just heard the character say a swear word. But there wasn't enough that it was in any way noticeable. If other than that swear word, if there was any in there, I didn't notice it because I was just so engrossed in the story. You know, there's not as much of the sexual elements between him and Tika in this book because he's away from Tika through most of the book. But you do have hints of that relationship between him and Tika. And you have, you know, hints of goblin, of I'll say a goblin orgy, for lack of a better way to word it, although it doesn't quite go that far. But, you know, there are some, I can think of parents I know who would not want their children to listen to those parts of those books. And I can think of plenty of parents I know, I mean, most parents I know, they wouldn't care if their children listen to this book. There's the select few who are extra careful that they would care about that. You have the battles. You do have torture scenes. I mean, Oren gets captured at one point. He starts to get tortured. So you do have stuff like that. None of it is done in a way that with me raising 3 boys, it would have bothered me to have them listen to it at all. I would have listened to this with my boys, and we would have absolutely loved this series. I do listen to it with my boys now, and we do love this series together. It's just they're older, but I mean, when they were younger, I would have been willing to do that. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you like my channel, subscribe, turn on notifications, questions, comments, feedback. It's what the comment section is for. Put them in there. But most importantly, no matter what else you do today, make sure that today you listen to at least one really good audiobook. Oh, and do I ever recommend the Life Reset series by Shemer Kuznits, and I apologize if I mispronounced the name.